Hi, everyone. We are live tonight on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. and I'm a little later than I usually am, so I apologize for that. But I'm Carol Williams. I'm the managing attorney at Williams Immigration, a U.S. immigration law firm where we help businesses, startup founders, as well as family members navigate our U.S. immigration system. So, I like to come on live Monday through Thursday evening and give you the update, what's been going on, and then answer some of your questions. This weekend was very, very busy for my employment-based folks. A new executive order was dropped Friday late afternoon, early evening, which essentially said that the H-1B visa now has an additional fee of $100,000. Yes, I did not stutter, $100,000. So a lot of folks in global mobility and in-house attorneys and immigration attorneys and H-1B sponsored employees were curious, in a state of wonderment and anxiety this weekend. Folks who were on H-1Bs who were outside of the U.S. weren't sure if they were going to be able to get back into the U.S. as of yesterday, before this new fee went into effect. The executive order was unclear as to there are a lot of questions that came out of that executive order. And so a lot of us spent the weekend looking through our case files, making sure, that we captured everybody who was on H-1B, who was going to apply for H-1B, who's currently on H-1B, folks that we had maybe who are outside of the country, and just how did we navigate this new executive order that was effective on Sunday, but that only was dropped on Friday. So that was our weekend. Saturday. Oh, it's all a blur. But sometime this weekend, there was, I think it was Saturday evening, maybe. I don't know. It's a blur, y'all. It's a blur. But over the weekend, DHS issued like a substantively one paragraph memo that said that this does not apply to people that have already filed their applications. It does not apply to people who already have visas who are flying back into the country, that they should be allowed back into the country. So that was quite a big relief for many people. And frankly, a lot of businesses would have been affected by that as well. Not having employees back when they were expected back from vacation, business trips, whatever they were traveling for. So then we got an FAQ that was released. I'm looking at it. FAQ was released yesterday. So that certainly answered some of our questions, but not necessarily all of them. So if y'all have any real specific questions about the executive order, I'll do my best to kind of parse through. But honestly, we are all, as immigration attorneys, sorting through what this executive order means, what the memo means, and what the resulting H-1B FAQ means. So we're all sort of sorting through it. But that's how many of us spent our weekends. Not how many of us had planned to spend our weekends, but how many of us spent our weekends. And I say this a lot. I was at an event on Wednesday, I think Wednesday of last week. And I was talking with other business owners, other professionals, other lawyers. And there were 4 other immigration attorneys there at this event besides myself. And we all know one another. We're all very collegial. We all get along. And so I was saying to them that being an immigration attorney is very, very cool. We are all very collegial. We're all here to help one another. So it's not those horrible rumors that people hear and talk about lawyers in general. Immigration lawyers are some very, very cool people. And we all came together this weekend, like we always do, to sort through this for our clients. We all have the same end goal, which is to help our clients. So that was, while it was a long weekend, while it was a rough weekend, while it was a tough weekend, while we all had a lot to do this weekend, it was good to know that we were all in it together. So that's always a nice thing. So that was kind of really the big thing, really to kind of update you guys on. Don't forget about the citizenship application updates. We're going from 100 questions to a possible 128 questions. Now you need to get 12 right out of 20. They will start asking you questions. Once you get those 12 right, they will stop asking you questions, or stop asking you the civics questions anyway. But there will still be a English test. So reading, writing, and speaking English, that test will still be there. That does not go away. So just kind of remember that. And then, yeah, so that's kind of the weekend. That's kind of the things I wanted to update you guys on. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And again, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. While I am an immigration lawyer, I'm not your specific immigration lawyer, so I can't give you case-specific advice. This is just us chatting and education. If you want super specific advice for your very specific set of circumstances, you are welcome to schedule a time to chat during a consultation. So let's see what we have question-wise. Sometimes y'all give me some questions while I am giving you an update. First question I have is, can I file asylum ASAP after I-130 was withdrawn? I don't know. I don't handle asylum. So asylum is a whole set of rules that I do not know and or understand. So I don't know the answer to your question. Someone's asking, how do I contact you for a consultation, Island Gal? You can, there's a link in my bio that will take you to my consult page. Why does DACA take a few weeks for some and for some takes months? The processing times are always approximate. So I don't know. It could be that somebody is working the cases on their desk faster than somebody else, frankly. It could be that one office that's handling DACA is just working super fast and the other one's not. I mean, it could be a lot of things. I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you and could give you more perspective. Coco is saying hello. Hello, Coco. One second, let me scroll back up. What could be some problems that could prevent your citizenship? Oh, that's a very open-ended question. I kind of like that though. So for citizenship, if you are married to a U.S. citizen, you have to have been a green card holder for 3 years before you apply. If you are not married to a U.S. citizen, you have to be a green card holder for 5 years. So if you apply too early, they will deny your case. They will, let me be clear, they will take your money, they will cash or check and deny your case, right? So you want to make sure you're applying on time. If you haven't lived in the jurisdiction of your local office, so if you just moved, and you're now in the jurisdiction of a different local office than your prior address, that will take time. There's that. If you haven't been in the U.S. For long enough, there's a physical presence rule. So it's essentially either half of 3 years or half of 5 years, however you qualify. So if you don't meet that's usually one of the issues that my clients have. My clients tend to travel quite a bit, so we've got to count those days that they were in the U.S. meticulously. If you count the days incorrectly, Other problems that could prevent your citizenship are in between the officer telling you that you are approved and your swearing in date. If you don't meet the requirements for physical presence within that time frame, if you don't meet the rest of the requirements, or something changes about your meeting those requirements between the time that the officer said you're approved and your swearing in date, then you have a problem. You are not a U.S. citizen until you are actually sworn in. So those are some of the nitty gritty things that I've seen people have some issues with. Criminal history could be an issue. Those sorts of things. What else do we have? Someone's asking, are fiance visa review cases picking up? On the whole, I don't know. It really depends on the office that is adjudicating that case, on the office that is processing that case. So that I can't say if they're like, I don't know if they're speeding up. Those aren't processing times that I've checked recently or that I've been keeping track of. Let's see here. My mom has a 10-year green card that expired last year in May. Can she still renew it? So I usually get this question in the form of panicked phone calls. So this is a really good question. So your green card is your 10-year green card is evidence that you are a lawful permanent resident. When your physical card expires, it does not mean that you are no longer a lawful permanent resident. It means that you have to reach out to USCIS and file and have them send you a new card. So if your 10-year green card expired last year or 2 years ago or 10 years ago, you can file and ask USCIS to send you a new card. You do not have to file a whole new green card application. You're just asking them to send you a new card. It's kind of like when your check card expires. Your check card is simply evidence that you have a bank account, that you have some way to pull money out of your account. When your bank card expires, your checking account doesn't expire. So it's the same thing. Let's see here. Can a father who is a U.S. citizen apply for a U.S. passport for his daughter who has a green card? A lawful permanent resident is not a U.S. citizen. So the short answer to that would be only U.S. citizens can apply for passports. There are some instances where children are actually U.S. citizens and they just don't know it. And so one of the ways that we, after we do the analysis and figure out whether or not that child is actually a U.S. citizen, one of the ways that we then can move forward is we can then apply for a U.S. passport directly. Because we have a claim that child is a U.S. citizen. But without knowing a whole lot more facts, sort of the general answer to your question is no. The person needs to be a U.S. citizen before you can apply for a passport. So we'd have to figure out if that child is actually a U.S. citizen or not. How do you know which USCIS officer is receiving your case? Oh, you have no idea. That is done on purpose. The Immigration Service is never going to tell you the name of the officer who is processing your case. That is a big old no-no. They are not going to tell you that. And in part, they don't want us on the outside harassing and reaching out to specific officers who are processing our case. So you will not know the name of the officer. If you get a request for further evidence or a notice of intent to deny, or you get some sort of correspondence asking for something, the officer's identity is masked through a number. So their officer number is on the letter, but their name is not. their name is not. That is probably for safety and security, and so they don't get harassed and all the things. So yeah, you will never know the actual officer who's working on your file. Someone is asking, is it important to have an immigration attorney in the same state when pursuing citizenship? You don't need to. Immigration attorneys in the U.S. we have the ability to work in all 50 states and Washington, D.C. So I, along with several of my colleagues, will fly to you and come to your interview and, do all those things. But most of my colleagues and I work virtually. We work with folks all over the country. I know my office works with people all over the country. Let's see here. I went to my interview last Thursday for registry law. I-45, the officer wasn't familiar. Registry is a pretty really niche and fairly old rule. So depending on when your officer started with USCIS, they may not, and depending on whether or not it's still part of the training, I don't know. They may not have known about registry. Thanks for the glitter badges, guys, and the hearts. I appreciate it. If my husband applied for a green card for me now, when I'm going to interview, if my husband apply green card for me now, when I'm going to interview, ICE will take me and turn me back. I don't know. It depends on how you entered the U.S., if you're here without status, what you've done since you've been here, if you have a criminal background, like all of that comes into play. And then it also comes into play whether or not ICE plans on physically being in the building that day. So I don't know. Like, I can't give you an exact, I don't know. I've had clients had to, sort of emotionally and mentally sort through that. But I don't know. I can't predict where ICE will show up. Steve.S got their I-130 approved today, waiting on the 45. Congratulations. That is awesome. I love to celebrate wins. Lawyer filed for the I-45 for my husband. How long does it take to get the interview? I don't know, because I don't know where your case is filed. I don't know what the basis of your case is, but the person who does know is your lawyer. I would absolutely shoot an email or call your lawyer and ask them how long they think it's going to take to get the interview. Someone is asking RFE time after submitted. I don't know what you mean. Are you asking how long does it take USCIS to process after you submit your response to an RFE? I don't know what you're asking me. It's been 18 months now since I filed for my alien spouse case overseas and no approval yet. Yeah, that's not surprising. If you've filed the I-130, sometimes those are, I think they're taking a while. So yeah, 18 months does not surprise me. The timing overseas, well, first you've got to get through your I-130 here in the States. Then you've got to go through NVC, but then it depends on the processing time. It depends on whether or not the consulate your specific consulate has interview times available. And if you are in one of the preference categories for family-based, it depends on whether or not your priority date is current. So I don't quite know where exactly you are in your process, but 18 months does not surprise me. 18 months does not sort of bring any bells to mind. It doesn't necessarily bring any red flags. I scrolled up too fast. Sorry. Thanks for the follows, guys. I think. Sorry, I'm scrolling back up. My husband did his biometrics last week AOS. That's fantastic. And the reason I say it's fantastic is because USCIS is chatting with you. So as long as we're chatting with you, I think that's good. Let's see. Is it safe to travel domestic right now with a pending VAWA? I don't know. My office doesn't really do VAWA cases. But what I am telling people is to stay away from airports, even if they're flying domestically, if they have some sort of criminal history. So this is I'm going to kind of shift the question a little bit, but I've heard people say, and I've heard people write in comment sections and all the things in chat rooms and everywhere, that if you're flying domestically, it's not a problem because it's domestic, right? And you don't have to formally see immigration when you're flying domestically, right? And I see that all the time, and I cringe because if you're at an airport that has an international terminal, that has international flights, CBP and ICE are not confined to the international sections of airports. They can, will, and do walk through the domestic part of the airport. They can, will, and will do their job as they see fit in the domestic terminal as well. So do not think that just because you are going into the domestic terminal that you will not see CBP officers or ICE officers. I do a fair amount of flying, and I see DHS vehicles outside domestic terminals all the time. I may not see them, or maybe I'm just not paying attention when I'm in the airport, but their vehicles are there, which means that they're there. So, I would have a conversation with somebody if you have something in your background that makes it not so desirable for you to get on an international flight, then I would also probably not get on a domestic flight as well. But those are conversations I have with my clients one-on-one to figure out, what the risks are, and then they take that information and then they make their own decisions. Me and my husband had an interview in June, still no answer, and we submitted paperwork in April. I would go online and check and see if your case is outside of processing times. If it is, then I would ping USCIS and ask them what's going on. June, July, August, it's 3 months. Listen, I'm extremely impatient. So while I don't particularly like 3 months, 3 months doesn't necessarily throw up like warning bells for me. Why are some I-129F, those are fiancé visa cases, left behind and approved later than others? That's just unfortunately how USCIS is. They strive to process cases first in, first out. The reality is, while that is what they go for, right? If 5 officers sit next to one another at their desks and 5 officers are only processing I-129Fs, one of those officers is going to be the quickest, one is going to be the slowest. That's just how it is, right? If the slowest officer then goes on vacation If the middle officer leaves the role altogether and goes and processes a completely different type of case, leaving that casework on that desk, that casework now needs to be distributed out. So while the agency strives for first in, first out, it is a hard job. It is a hard job. So some cases are going to be quicker and some cases are going to be slower than the stated processing times. I tell this to my clients all the time. Processing times are approximate. Sometimes they speed up, sometimes they slow down. That is just the unfortunate reality. My girl Bianca is here. Maybe, I don't know if she's still here, but I certainly know if she's still here, she's not relaxing like she should be doing, but I won't yell at her too badly this evening. Once your case goes to NVC, how long will it take? It depends. Depends on the type of case it is. Depends on how long it takes you to give NVC the documents that they need. Depends on how long it takes NVC to sort through all the documents, send them, send you notes that say that your documents aren't good enough, and how long it takes for there to be an available appointment at the consulate, and depends on your priority date. So lots of things are at play when you are working with the NVC. It is not just a matter of you submitted your documents yesterday and you should have an interview next week. That is not how it works with NVC. Frustrating as that may be, that is how NVC works. Someone's asking a question about asylum and removal. That is not my ministry at all. I am like the worst person to ask about asylum and deportation defense work. EB3 unskilled process. If you work without work permit, can you get a green card? It depends. There are some rules that allow you to leave the country, come back in if you haven't worked without work authorization. Once you've come back in, maybe. But generally you want to stay away from working without authorization. Especially, honestly, and this is going to sound a little bizarre, but if you're in a family green card context and you entered lawfully and a U.S. spouse is applying for you, right? All of your work unauthorized is completely forgiven. All of your time out of status, if you fell out of status, is completely forgiven, because the government has prioritized keeping a family unit together with a U.S. citizen. There is not that same prioritization when it comes to keeping an employee together with an employer if the employee has done something that violates the rules. So that would have to be sort of a much more in-depth conversation to see if you qualify for any sort of waiver, or whether or not that working without authorization could impact your green card. So I-130 got approved, but they requested for criminal record report he missed his polio vaccination. Is this bad? The civil surgeon can give you any vaccinations that you don't have. So that's a little odd that the civil surgeon wouldn't have just said, here are the, here's this vaccination or whatever. Requesting a criminal record is a completely different ball of wax. So the criminal record says that the Immigration Service found something that maybe potentially wasn't in the initial application. I don't know. But it's never a good thing if the Immigration Service is asking you proactively for a criminal record. Now, if they're asking you for a a certificate that says, like that you haven't done any, that you don't have a criminal history, that's completely different than them asking you for a very specific criminal history. So I'm not quite sure which one you mean. Is it safe to drive or fly with an EAD card and a driver's license? I would look at the TSA website under Real ID. Real ID went into effect for real this time, I think May, March of this year. So I would look at the Real ID website. They have a website that lists Real ID approved documentation. So I would look at that. How long does it take to schedule an oath interview? I've been waiting since March. Completely depends on the office. If you have requested to change your name, sometimes it will take longer because name changes have to be done in court. So the local office has to wait until there are enough people who want to do a name change so that they can swear all of you in together. But it really just depends on the workload of that specific office. I've had folks recently who have had their interview and then been sworn in on the same day. It just kind of depends. Like that, those offices, those specific days were moving lightning fast, and they had ceremonies already scheduled the same day that my clients had their interviews, and so they offered them same day interview, and I told my clients, if you get that offer, you jump on it. Let's see, that was my alarm, y'all. I can't stay on much longer. Let me see here. Thanks for the hearts. And Bianca, I see that you said that you snuggled with the baby today, so that's nice. My husband was put in administrative processing. Ugh, that is hard. Administrative processing is hard because oftentimes they don't tell you why. So administrative processing is hard. It's just kind of constantly sort of knocking at the door. Let's see. Can a man apply for VAWA with no physical violence? I don't know. I am not a VAWA person. My office doesn't really handle VAWA cases. We work with other attorneys that handle VAWA cases. Let's see. Why is USCIS denying an I-45 application for not showing up, although it was rescheduled by them? Because officers are human and mistakes get made. Truly. Like, we're going to complain about how these cases are processed regardless. If it were robots, if it were all AI, if it's all people, like, we're going to complain, right? Like, we're going to complain. But at the end of the day, that to me sounds like one of a few things may have happened. Could have been just an accident by USCIS. Could have been the internal USCIS process. Something glitched, maybe software, and maybe you just got the wrong notice. Maybe it was human error where someone affirmatively pressed the wrong key. Maybe they confused your file with another file. Reach out to them. If you want my office to reach out to them, we'll reach out to them, right? But reach out to them and say, you all rescheduled. Now I'm sitting on a denial notice. But if you need to do that quickly, and you need to have evidence that they rescheduled you. But yeah, I mean, mistakes unfortunately happen. And listen, mistakes happen with my files as well. When, sometimes when they hit USCIS, and it's frustrating. And again, I always say this: I'm not the most patient person, but sometimes, like, you got to give people a little bit of grace. Sometimes, just a little bit of grace. But yeah, it is extremely frustrating. Question regarding an N400. If you have a general question, you should ask that quickly or come back tomorrow, because I'm not going to be on for too much longer. Hold on. So I don't generally handle asylum and removal cases, and my friend Bianca is saying the way that I don't handle asylum and removal is how she feels about employment immigration, which I happen to love employment immigration. I mean, it was a little challenging this weekend with the whole $100,000 visa situation, but you know, you just gotta kind of rock and roll. I'm going to my country to pick up my visa. Do you think any problem will be when I'm coming back? So I'm going to make an assumption that you are picking up a employment-based visa. It's an assumption. I haven't seen folks. I should say this. I haven't seen my clients have a whole lot of issues when they're traveling back and forth when they're coming back from getting their visa. Sort of the sticky part now is the amount of time it takes to get that visa appointment. But once they get the visa appointment, go in, have the interview, which pretty much are all, there's no sort of waiving interviews for non-immigrant visas at the moment. Haven't really seen any problems. Can I guarantee you that you're not going to have a problem? No, I don't know your individual circumstances, but I haven't seen, and my colleagues and I haven't, like, our conversations haven't really surrounded around sort of pockets or issues with people coming back in when they've had valid visas. That's not sort of what we are chatting about at the moment. What about pursuing citizenship? What about those pursuing citizenship who are conscientious objectors? They have to take a different oath. I have no idea. That I don't know. But I have never heard of there being a different oath. So that I don't know. Hold on one second. Can an immigration judge deny a granted removal cancellation? I have no idea. I don't actually practice deportation defense. I'm never in front of immigration judges and don't know the answer to that question. Got my marriage green card. Can I call and cancel the asylum court date or just attend the court date? I have no idea. Marriage green card I get, court date, asylum, not something that I handle, so I wouldn't even begin to know where to sort of point you on the right path. Is it true right now that if one error is found on an I-130, it'll automatically get denied? No. One error on an I-130, depending on what that error is, does not immediately get you denied. However, immigration has said, and this is not the first time they've said this, but they have said that they don't have to issue RFEs. They don't have to ask for, additional evidence. It has been my experience that they will skip a request for further evidence. They will go straight to a notice of intent to deny. And sometimes they'll skip over a notice of intent to deny and simply deny a case if the documents presented don't even begin to show that somebody meets the requirements of what they are applying for. So I always talk about, you have to provide documents. Doesn't matter that I say you're qualified. Doesn't matter that you think you're qualified. Doesn't matter that your mama thinks you're qualified. If you do not present the immigration service with documents, they're not going to deal with those anymore, right? It's just kind of where they are at this point. But no, I have not personally seen one error equaling a denial. I have not seen that for I-130s. But they are cracking down on cases that are filed with minimal to no documentation, or a ton of blank spaces on the form because people didn't understand the question, something like that, and so they just left it blank. The Immigration Service is not going to process these cases. And here's what they're going to do. They're going to cash that check, because the check gets cashed long before the file makes it to an officer's desk. So it's not the officer that is responsible for opening up your package and taking the check and making sure that gets, sending that to one office so that it gets cashed. Your check is cashed long before your file gets to an officer. So, making sure that you present them with documents that are going to help your case, it essentially saves you money. Like these processing fees they're not like $2, they're not $100. So you want to make sure that you are giving them good documents. So on that note, on a good document note, I am going to log off. I actually have 4 more things I need to do before I can call it an evening. So this has been great. I will be back tomorrow, roughly around 7-ish Eastern Standard Time. Give you some more updates. If there are more updates on the $100,000, no, I did not get that wrong, on the $100,000 H-1B situation, I will update you guys on that as well. But if you want someone to help you with your case, if you want that someone to be me and my team, we're happy to do so. Just schedule a consultation with us. We will see what you got. We'll see how we can help you. We work with clients all over the country, in all 50 states, in DC. So let us know, set up a consult, send us an email. Happy to help. And I will chat with y'all again tomorrow. Bye, guys.